What's up, people? Welcome back to the show. This is episode number 21, the fourth solo episode that I'm going to do, just documenting the journey of the podcast. So let's get right into it. The main idea of this past week for me has been less is more. As I've been reading the book Essentialism by Greg McCowan, I've started to realize that there's so many little things that I do in my life, for school, for business, for this podcast, that is very, very unnecessary. And it's taught me that, doing more just to feel more productive doesn't actually lead to anything meaningful as far as output goes. And so this week I have put in less inputs, I've worked less, and I've actually gotten better results on last week's episode. I have still produced the same level, same quantity of output, but at a higher quantity. No, not quantity, but a higher ROI, meaning that they got better results and I worked less on them. And so I've been able to nail down what inputs are actually moving the needle. And so for me, that turns out to be essentially record this podcast, record research for my guests, as well as edit and basically minimize the amount of editing that I'm doing. So I used to spend hours upon hours upon hours editing these episodes, trying to make them look fancy and look nice, but that doesn't actually lead to anything meaningful because retention is lost from the very beginning of the episode. So all the energy that you put into editing the rest of the episode doesn't actually lead you anywhere. So we'll talk about retention later, but what I've realized is that whenever you focus on the right things, it allows you the freedom to work less and to get better at those few things that you do. So this applies to life in general. Whatever it is that you think you want to do with your life, whatever I want to do with my life, it's infinitely better to just focus on that one singular thing. It's your greatest contribution to the world, as Greg McCowan would say. It is the alignment between what you're passionate about, what you love to do, the work that you love, with what the world needs, along with the unique talents and skills that you've been given as a person. And you figure out what those things are mostly by looking back towards your childhood, right? So the talent part and the passion part you can find by looking back to whenever you were younger and trying to determine, okay, what were the things that I was interested in? What was I passionate about? What did I love to do? And look towards the play aspects of your childhood. So like whenever you were playing, what were you doing? Were you outside? Were you inside? Were you playing video games? Were you playing with other people? Were you playing sports? Were you moving around? What kind of interests were you drawn to? And then look inside yourself to find talents, right? Think about what you were innately good at whenever you were younger, and then this gives you insight into, okay, so I was naturally talented at these things, and whenever I did them, they felt like play. And even though it would technically feel like work for other people, they felt like easy and enjoyable for me to do. They felt like play. And so for me, I found within myself that I was typically the popular guy. I was the guy that was always hanging out with everyone else. And I found that enjoyable when I was younger, right? Just being like moving around, running around, being outside especially, and hanging out with my friends and just playing games, coming up with new games, just letting our imaginations run free, being super athletic, just being active and being creative and having these kind of competitive things. And so that's kind of the premise behind the branding around this podcast. It's like the founder games, it's like this competitive nature of how do we optimize our health so that we can work even harder than last time. And it's interesting to see the dynamic between that, like the branding of the podcast, and the way I see the world, because in doing the essentialist life by sacrificing and trading off things that are not necessary in your life and simplifying it down to the few things that actually mean something and actually contribute to the world, it might seem like, oh, you don't need to work as hard anymore. But it means you are working the same amount, but on the things that actually matter. And as a result, you're not making some decisions. You're not feeling so overwhelmed by having to do all of these things and have all of these responsibilities. And so you can focus in on these few things and make a really, really huge amounts of progress on those few things. And so that's what I've done. I've rewatched my episodes, I've done better research, and I've hosted better interviews because of the fact that I'm able to focus on them. I'm not doing fancy trailers, I'm not focusing on having a bunch of camera angles, I'm not focused on having a really fancy editing system, I'm not focused on even a business right now, I'm just focused on the podcast, right? And so I've figured out what trade-offs I want to trade off, and as a result, this week has all been about less is more. I felt more energized. I felt like I align more with what message I'm trying to bring with the podcast, because I'm all about health and working hard, and I feel like I've been, like, for the past few years of my life, it's all been hard work and basically sacrificing my health. Diet was all out the window. Sleep was basically non-existent, like sub 6 hours every night. But now I'm starting to balance everything in and have that health aspect, and it's actually allowed me to make better work, which is pretty magical. It's actually amazing how simplifying things and prioritizing something as critical as your own health and putting them together leads to more work, leads to better work, and it leads to harder work, even though it doesn't feel hard. It's pretty crazy. All right, recent episode, Fabian, and it was all about purpose and how to find meaningful work, and it performed very well comparatively to the past two episodes, at least. And it performed up to par because I think it comes down to keywords. I think the title was catchy, it was hooky, it was interesting. People wanted to click on the video because the title was interesting and the thumbnail aligned with the title. But the keywords are key here. So you want to have words in the title that are SEO friendly. You want to have a description that is very concise, but it uses strategic words so that YouTube knows who to send the video to, like what audience to send it to, and give more impressions to. And the more impressions you get, the better. And then the better your thumbnail is, the higher your CTR will be, and that is what leads to better views. So it comes down to title. We need to have a good title using the principles of journalism, right? You've recorded a podcast episode, an interview podcast episode, and you're rewatching it, or as you're editing it, think in the back of your mind like a journalist. What is the lead of the story? What is the headline that we're going to like? What would be the headline of the episode? You know, what would catch the attention of a passerby on the sidewalk at a newspaper stand? Think about the podcast like a magazine, right? Why would someone want to open that magazine? Why would someone want to buy that magazine and read it? It's because it's got this headline on it that's super interesting, super controversial, maybe. And so that's what we did. That's what the title is, that's what the thumbnail is. So those need to hit. And then within your description, you need to have good SEO. You need keywords in the very first 200 characters. You need every single possible keyword that pertains to the episode so that YouTube knows who to show the video to. And then finally, tags. I added tags on this one, and it didn't improve, or actually I can't say that the tags actually improved anything because this is the first time, but I'll use tags from now on. Again, it's just keywords and SEO. So yeah, recent episode performance pretty good. Retention is still bad, so we still need to figure that out, but we're gonna talk about that right now. Starting with intros. I've been thinking about it and going off the mindset of simple is better. I think that for YouTube, the intro is different from Spotify and Apple Podcasts because whenever someone's listening to a podcast, they need to know immediately if they're gonna get ROI from their listening and what they will be listening to. And it's different for YouTube. It's different from YouTube fundamentally because YouTube is a video platform. People are mostly here to be entertained. But when you think about Spotify or Apple Podcasts, people are going to be there mostly to be educated. And so I think for audio only formats, it makes a lot of sense to have purely a intro that actually informs. It's like the one we did for the past few episodes. It's gonna give them the question of the episode. It's gonna give the topics covered in the episode. It's going to give take key takeaways from the episode before the actual episode starts, so that we know what they're getting into before they invest the hour or so listening. So that makes a lot of sense, at least for Spotify and Apple Podcasts. But for YouTube, it's different, I think. Most people are here to be entertained rather than educated, but they're already using one of their ones to be educated. And so you need to entertain them in some way to hook them in and keep them retained. And I think the best way to do it is keep it simple. It's similar to how we've been cutting back and trading off different things in our life, in our business, in our podcast. Keep the intro simple. You don't need to overcomplicate things. And so Chris Williamson does something really powerful, I think. He opens the episode with the question of the episode, and immediately the guest responds. So there's no advert at the beginning. There's no talking head from the host. There is no trailer. There's nothing. It just dives right into the episode and starts with that question, and he uses that part as a hook. I think I might do something similar. Or we can do something that other podcasts are doing, which is coming soon or coming up, and it's just key clickbait, high controversy or high curiosity inducing clips from the guest in the beginning, and then you have like a little tag saying coming soon or up next or coming up. And so it's like to be watched. You like keep watching because you'll get these parts of the episode. You put that at the very beginning, front load it, logo, and then stream the episode. That would be easier for me, at least from an intro perspective, because I won't have to write the intros anymore. And it might be more interesting because I can handpick the kind of moments to focus on with the guest in particular, like what moments or what key moments from what the guest said would resonate the most with the title and the thumbnail, because when people click, they have an expectation of something. And so if we strategically position that opening clip so that people they get their interest further piqued, and it increases the likelihood that they'll keep listening because they've clicked on the video, so it's the title of the thumbnail pique their interest, and then the opening clip further eases them into the episode, and then the episode starts with the question, and it's like, okay, they're genuinely invested. I think that's just when you think about it from first principles, right? How do most podcasters start their episodes? They either do trailer, so think Diary of a CEO, right? They do the trailer, high energy, high dopamine, captions all over the place, epic cinematic music, quick cuts, key moments. Yeah, it's made for YouTube. It obviously works, but it takes a lot more effort, a lot more time, a lot more complexity that I'm not going to deal with. So you got that option. You got the coming soon, the controversial clip, exciting curiosity-inducing clips part, where it's just it's a collage of the guests' most impactful moments put together into like a short 30-second clip and then straight to the episode. That still works. And then you have the straight to the episode with like an opening question. And why do these work? It's because it's an ease of it's an easing of the listener or the viewer into the episode, right? They've clicked on the video, their curiosity has been piqued. And then you're basically driving more curiosity, wanting to basically sell to them that the episode is worth their time. So if your intro is, I think the key to a good intro is it's short, it's sweet. There's no fluffiness at all. It's just straight to the point, and it further establishes curiosity. And I think that's why I'm gonna start going with the Chris Williamson path, because it saves me time, it reduces complexity, and it still eases the reader, the listener, and the viewer into the episode. Yeah. I think we're going to iterate on that way, but not for the next few episodes. I want to keep doing the intro scenes for these episodes because I still need to test it out and see if the retention does see an improvement or not. But I have a feeling it's not going to improve because we've had 2 episodes now with an intro at the beginning, and retention is still pretty bad, objectively, compared to everything. Compared to the other podcasts, it's still the same. It's just a downward trajectory. But we want to aim for at least like a more of a less downward sloping curve at the very beginning, and have more listeners actually continuing to listen to the episode. Yeah, we want to be able to attract people to click on the video and then keep them watching the video without clicking off. And most people click off around like 50 to 60% click off by the end of like 2 minutes. So that's a problem. It shows that the intro is not working. And I think it's because it's too long and my talking hands are too long. So I think we'll just go straight into it. I think that we just need to keep it shorter. We'll just start with the question. It saves me time, saves me complexity. I don't have to write the intros anymore. And it's better retention. So that's what we'll do. Okay, and then finally we're going to iterate on the thumbnails a little bit. So I've been thinking about the branding perspective of things and just the clickbaitiness of YouTube. And I figured out that my thumbnails aren't particularly clickbaity. They just have this massive gold text and then the guest's face, which, I mean, it's worked decently well. There's been those select few videos that have performed very well, hundreds of views with that thumbnail. But I think I want to transition to the quotes because I think the quotes have more virality potential, and it gives me more creative freedom to connect the title to the quote to the thumbnail. Because with the quote I can say more, and the words are smaller. It didn't feel like a scam, I guess. It feels more genuine, and it feels more like the Founder Games to me, at least from a branding perspective. So we'll try it. We'll see how the videos perform. Fingers crossed they perform okay. But yeah, we're iterating on the thumbnails just a tad bit. Same color scheme, just using quotes instead of big blocky text. Finally, watermark. Yeah, so I feel like a genuinely more professional, polished kind of show. Now that we have this backdrop, now that we have the higher quality footage, obviously the good audio, I genuinely feel like we have something pretty special. And so I now have the logo watermark in the bottom left-hand corner of the video. So it's going to look pretty clean, I'd say. And it just adds to the Founder Games aesthetic and the whole branding aspect of things. So I'm really happy with it. Yeah, that's about it for the document of the journey. I've been kind of on the fence with the podcast lately because of how less I'm working. It's a bit of a weird dynamic, working less and still producing the same level of output makes me feel like I'm not working enough compared to what other people are doing. But I genuinely think that this is more sustainable. This is what is going to keep me going for the years that it's going to take for this podcast to take off. So, yeah, less is more. That's the lesson of the week.